Don't let crisis be a constant motivator. Okay, ladies, I am back and I have a confession to make that this episode is for me. An even bigger confession that I have is we are now in the 10th month of 2019, and it was 10 months ago in January that I decided I was going to do a podcast a day. In any time that I have this discussion with somebody, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so ambitious of you. Way to go. Oh, you are inspiring. The number one reason why I decided to podcast daily is because I wanted to stop censoring myself. And even though people would say that I wasn't censoring myself, it wasn't so much that. I was actually getting in this pattern of not knowing what to say or how to say it. So I thought, I'm just going to put a whole bunch of content out there and see what comes out of my mouth. And just using my daily lessons and life to inspire and motivate and teach. Here's the confession. I have not been proactive. I told myself I'm going to get my shit together and start batching my podcasts, or, do a podcast and send it to my assistant and, they'll edit it. And most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, I am recording the podcast on the day of or the day before. And not that this is not okay, because, hey, it's getting done. I've missed a handful, maybe about 5 episodes in the whole year. We let go of Sundays, but I think Sundays are actually going to come back. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm all about progress, not perfection. But here I am, almost a year later, still telling myself that I'm going to get my shit together and be proactive instead of reactive. And it's not that even sometimes I know what I'm going to say. I just didn't create the space to do this. And I know I'm not alone when it comes to this, because maybe you don't podcast every day, but you tell yourself, I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start meal planning. I'm going to create space for my children. I'm going to create space for my partner. I'm going to create space and start looking at my money. I'm going to create space and really go for it in my business. And I was asked this question, so thank you. I believe it was Pam who asked this question. If it wasn't you, Pam, maybe it was somebody else. But anyways, I'm giving a shout out to Pam. And she asked, and I'm paraphrasing, how do you commit to success when you don't feel motivated? And here's the thing. You got to do things that scare the shit out of you. So doing the thing that scared the shit out of me was saying I was going to podcast daily. So I made that commitment. And I will not let you down. That's just me. I have external motivation of not letting other people down. Will I let myself down? 100%. But when I'm very loyal to external motivation. So if I tell people I'm going to show up somewhere, I'm going to show up. If I don't want to show up, I will say, now's not the good time. I don't have the capacity for that. But if I tell you I'm going to podcast daily for a year, I'm going to podcast daily for a year, even if it requires me, sitting in an airport or doing something in my car like I actually am right now. This is the point. It's about being proactive instead of reactive. Now, I understand that recording a podcast a day is not the end of the world. There are bigger issues in the world. But there's something mentally that is stopping me from being proactive instead of reactive. And I've tried to position myself, put myself in uncomfortable situations where some things motivate me and some things don't. So again, I told my assistant, you will not edit a podcast, on the weekends. You will not edit a podcast after XYZ time. And some of those work, some of them don't, because then my husband will do it or I'll do it. So there's so many different things that I'm trying to position myself and get myself really, really uncomfortable so that I can break this pattern. But this is a micro issue in my life. And I started today's podcast topic saying, don't let crisis be a constant motivator, because I get motivated like, fuck, I didn't do a podcast today. I have to do a podcast, and I can pull shit out of my ass, right? I'm sure some of my episodes, you're like, what the heck is she talking about? Like the one I did about forgetting to shave my left armpit randomly. And I'm sure that would still come out of my mouth even if it was pre-recorded. But my point is, I see this in a bigger scale for so many women, that we say yes to so much. And it's not even that I'm saying yes to everything, because I have the space. I just don't make it a priority until, pain is a motivator. Discomfort is a motivator. So it's not that we don't have the space in our life, it's that we're choosing because we're comfortable, right? There's not a fire under our ass. And this is also another reason why I'm a huge advocate for coaching and investment, because you're holding yourself accountable. You have you put a big financial investment behind something, you better fucking show up for it. And somebody's depending on you. So accountability is a big piece of this. And I look back on my personal life and my professional life, and I think about my health. I think about financial freedom. I think about parenting. I think about self-care. And I'm like, what motivated me? And I got to a point in my life where I was done being in crisis mode all the time as a constant motivator. And you have to rewire your brain. You have to constantly get uncomfortable and do things that make you uncomfortable and be challenged to change your patterns. So one pattern that I had over 6 years ago was living paycheck to paycheck. We were chronically living paycheck to paycheck. And, of course it was annoying, but that was the status quo. That was, what we heard around us, like, oh, yep, this is life. You have children. This is what it's going to be like for the rest of your life. And I grew up like that. I grew up with this story around money that living paycheck to paycheck was life until I got sick. And when I got sick, I remember saying to my husband, we need to start, I need to start like making more money, or we need to start making more money because I need to get vitamin C infusions 3 times a week, which is going to cost $600 a week. So think about that. $2,400 a month of additional income that we needed to come up with. And my business started already, and I wasn't making a lot of money in my business. And the reason why I wasn't making a lot of money in my business is because I was not in financial crisis mode. We were in survival mode. So we were living paycheck to paycheck. But when you are in crisis mode and it's a do or die scenario, and in my mind it was that if I didn't get vitamin C infusions, I was going to die. That was my belief. Because yes, I went through traditional treatment, but I knew that my body needed to recover, and in order for my body to recover, I had to invest in treatment. So no longer was we weren't in survival mode anymore. I was in crisis, and it was like, Heather, if you don't figure out how to make shit happen, you're going to die. So I made it happen. I sold everything that I possibly could. We lived on a very minimal food budget. I put our credit cards, and I'm not kidding about this, I put our credit cards in a block of water, put it in the freezer, and froze it. So if I needed that credit card number, I had to chip away at this huge block of ice to get it. I also called in, before I put that credit card in there, I called in to all the credit cards that we had, and I got a new credit card number so that there was no what do you call it? Like autosave, when you go to a website and it's like, hey, do you want to remember the card number for the next time? Well, of course you can say yes, yes, yes. Or when you have like apps on your phone and stuff and, it starts charging you monthly and you're not even paying attention. So I got all new credit card numbers so that there was nothing attached. And then if, something came and said, hey, your bill bounced back, I had to kind of reconnect the card number. So it was really difficult to spend money on credit. And so I froze everything, literally, and I sat in this discomfort that we were in financial crisis mode, and it was becoming a constant motivator. But as I continued to rinse and repeat, and there was many, many, many sleepless nights, many vacations not taken, many things not purchased for the children, things being delayed, and beans and rice were a real thing in our house. As momentum started to gain, right, and we started paying the cards down, I would call, okay? So again, I didn't want to let crisis be a constant motivator, but I had to rewire my brain. I had to rewire our spending habits. I had to rewire how I showed up. So I continued to use crisis as a motivator. So if we had a $10,000 credit card and it was maxed out and I paid off $1,000, I would call the credit card company and say, can you drop the credit down to $9,000 so that the credit card was still full? And every time I paid off some money, I would call back and say, can you drop down the credit to $8,500? Can you drop down the credit to $8,000 so that I could not spend the remaining balance on the card? And then what happened? And then I started making money. And when you start making money and your brain and your beliefs are so used to not being enough or not having enough, then again, these patterns are still there, that you're making money, but you're not keeping your money. So what I started doing, actually, my brain kind of flip-flopped to hoarding money. And then I was hoarding money because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've ever had money in my life. So what I started doing was, one, I used Profit First. So go check it out. That was a game changer for me as well. Just go buy the book, go listen to their podcast, go do everything. Google Profit First. Two, I started taking money out of my regular bank and putting it into another bank that I did not have online access to, and I had to physically walk into the bank to take out money. So, I don't want you to use crisis as a motivator, right? People say, how do you stay committed to your results? For me, what I have found is when I get too comfortable in any area of my life, I need something to motivate me. And sometimes that thing that motivates me is scaring the shit out of myself. So it might be making a big investment. It might be signing up for a race. It might be having a big goal that makes me want to crap my pants. And when I get uncomfortable, I kind of go back into crisis mode, into survival mode of, oh shit, the fight or flight comes out. So I don't want you to use the literal crisis mode. I don't want you to die or get diagnosed with cancer or some other type of disease before you start taking care of yourself. But if you are a healthy person right now and you do not know how to motivate yourself to take better care of you, do something that scares the shit out of you. Because either way, your brain is going to say, fight or flight, right? You're going to go back into survival mode. And you have to figure out, what can I do that scares the crap out of myself? Another example of this is I will have clients that will say to me, I need to create a more sustainable, boundaried schedule with work. So I'm going to leave work at 4 o'clock every night, because if somebody else is picking up my children, I'll stay here till 7 o'clock at night. So then you get rid of that after school care and you're like, I'm going to be there to pick up my kids every single night, or I'm going to be the one that's at home to get them off the bus. Make it happen. Do something that is uncomfortable. Do something that is uncomfortable. And if you're the type of person, and I think if you checked out, Gretchen Rubin, the 4 tendencies, you can go on her website, so you can Google 4 tendencies, and there's a quiz to figure out who you are. But I don't know about you. I am highly motivated by external motivation to not let other people down. And so I have to find weird ways to motivate myself. I'm actually not motivated by making more money. What motivates me is impact. So I will work, quote unquote, harder, more consistently to raise funds for somebody else than I will to give myself a paycheck. So it's almost like when I make this amount of money, then I'm able to donate this much, or whatever that looks like. So my point is, don't let crisis be a constant motivator to keep you committed to your results. But you kind of have to hack your brain in order for it to get uncomfortable to think you're in crisis to keep you motivated. If you have I'm curious actually what you think about this. If you are just naturally motivated to show up every single day, rinse and repeat, or if you have to get yourself uncomfortable in order to change a pattern in your brain. So let me know. Put it on your Insta stories. Tag Mom is in Control. I will tell you, I don't need to do this in every aspect of my life. Now I have habits formed in my life, but in some things where I'm trying to change a pattern, I have to do things that make me uncomfortable. So this is my declaration that I am committing to figuring out why I wait till the last possible second to podcast 9 out of 10 times. I will keep you posted on how it's going. And now that I've said it out loud, I don't want to let you down.